little bit later, we'll be having communion, and we have open communion, and that means if you're a born-again believer, you're encouraged and welcome to have communion with us. If you're not a born-again believer, you can be that before we get to the communion. Amen. This has been an inspiring yet tiring week for me. Started Monday down at Presbytery, and then went to a conference on trying to learn how to preach. Just found out, yeah, I know. Amen. I'm working on it. I'm telling you, I keep practicing. And, I finally found somebody that does it a little bit like me. We had 3 great instructors. It was about expository preaching and how to do that. And one of them, first one I've ever met that does things like me. He gets up church at 3 o'clock on Sunday mornings and writes his sermons. I get here at 4 and write mine. That doesn't mean that that's the first time I've got them. The other side of the coin is the president of the Southern Baptist Convention has his sermons planned a year in advance. He writes them out in long form 6 to 8 weeks in advance. And then the other guy was in between. So somewhere between, one of these days I'm going to learn how to preach, okay? I'm still working on it. But Monday at the presbytery meeting, and I really regret not being here for the funeral yesterday, but I had to teach a class. It's amazing. I'm still trying to learn how to preach, and they asked me to teach a class. But I teach a class with ministers yesterday and missed the funeral for Jimmy Williams, but I regret that. But Monday at the presbytery meeting, our general superintendent just shared a little nugget. Isn't it amazing how little nuggets sometimes just reach out and grab you? And he shared that, and I messaged him, and I asked him, said, that really was a blessing. Do you mind if I take it and preach it like it's supposed to be preached? And he said, somebody needs to, so please do. So I did. And the little nugget was just out of 1 Samuel chapter 17. A story that's probably one of the most popular stories in the Bible. A story about David and Goliath. And I've preached this message numerous times from a lot of different perspectives. But I want to zoom in on just 3 little thoughts from that. And young people, I especially want you to hear me, because my message today is don't limit your vision. Don't limit your God. Now, see, sometimes we can say vision or goal or dreams. We could interchange those words and use in many things, but I believe that God is telling us to not put a limit on them. And the nugget of truth that Brother Rayburn brought was as he was brought there, the first point was when David got there, and it's recorded there in Samuel 17 and verse 28. When Eliab, David's oldest brother, heard him speaking with the men, he burned with anger at him and asked, why have you come down here? And with whom did you leave those few sheep in the desert? I know how conceited you are and how wicked your heart is. You came down only to watch the battle. The first point that I want to encourage you is don't limit your vision, don't limit your goals, don't limit your ambition by what people say. Because there's plenty of people that'll tell you you're going to fail. There's plenty of people that tell you this was an elder brother. And he said, David, why are you here? You're just, you're just wanting to be seen. You're just wanting to do this, wanting to do that. And there's always those that want to destroy your dream. There are those that want to hinder you from accomplishing what God has for you to accomplish. Now, I'm just simple enough to believe that God has something for every one of us to do. All of us is different. We have different dreams, and that dream may not be to fill a pulpit. My dream, and one of these days it's going to come true, is to be a good preacher. But some of you might have been called to be a doctor, some of you to be something else, and God still has a plan for you, and yet there are people that will interfere. And young people, there's always somebody that sometimes means well and sometimes don't. And they'll tell you how big a failure you're going to be. Do not allow what people say to destroy and take away from your vision, from your opportunity. There was another story very familiar in the Bible by a guy by the name of Moses. He didn't think that he was going to fulfill his vision. But before we get to Moses, let me remind you of a few other things. Joseph in Genesis chapter 37. You know what his family told him? They called him the dreamer. You dreamer, who do you think you are? You're the youngest, and you're having these dreams. You're setting these goals. You're having the vision. You can name it whatever you want to. But the reality is his family laughed at him. They mimicked him. They sold him into slavery. And from the time he had his dream, which was early in his teenage years, so the time that began to be fulfilled was he's 30 years old. That's a long time. That he had to listen to people telling him, you can't do it. Telling him that you're a failure. I mean, he even went through prison. He was falsely accused. But he had a dream, and he was a dreamer. And if he'd have listened to everybody else, he would have never fulfilled his dream. And young people, I told you I wanted to speak to you. There's going to be those that are trying to tell you you cannot fulfill your dream. That it's beyond your capabilities. That who do you think you are? But the reality is we're God's vessel. We're God's person. And if He's given us a vision, if He's given us the dreams, He'll give us the ability to fulfill those dreams. But don't you dare listen to those people that would tell you differently. The guy that invented the steam engine, Robert Fulton, they called it Fulton's Folly. Fulton was about ready to give up. And you know what encouraged him? He was going to do a trial run. He was going up the Mississippi River, and then he was going down the Mississippi River and wanting to come back by steam engine. And he was a little bit fearful, a little bit anxious because he wasn't sure if it's going to work. And somebody that he didn't even know says, how much would it cost to ride your steam engine? Somebody believed in him. Somebody thought, he said, well, we're going to try to get back up creek. We're going to try to come up river. He said, how much will you charge me to ride down and ride back? He said, $6. And that was one of the things that motivated him enough to figure out, hey, I can do this. It can be done. Purchase of Alaska. What was it called? Seward's Folly. What about Thomas Edison? You know, he didn't invent the light bulb, but he perfected it. Now, not the type of lights we have today, but in the early days, those would only last just a quick minute. So he perfected the light bulb. And do you know how many times it's estimated that he failed? He failed 10,000 times. I think I'd have quit up at 9,999. 10,000 times. And I guarantee you, there were people telling him he was foolish, wasting his time to try to improve a light bulb. But he kept on. And so we have to understand that we don't listen to those people around us. And sometimes we can't even listen to self. Does self ever tell you something? Self sometimes gives me some bad advice. Sometimes self tells me how bad it is. See, I read about this guy. Listen to a quote. This man was undergoing depression. And his depression was so bad that his friends said, don't allow him to have any knives or weapons because he's suicidal. And this was a direct quote from him. I am now the most miserable man living. Whether I shall ever be better, I cannot tell. I awfully forebode I shall not. Who was this man? A man by the name of Abraham Lincoln. You may have heard about him. But he went through a mental breakdown, emotional breakdown. Didn't know what the future held. And he was telling himself he was going to fail. So don't listen to those people that are telling you that you need to limit your dreams, that you need to limit your vision. And then, second thing is, we know David had a lot of faith. But David said, I killed a lion and I killed a bear. Now, he could have been like some of us. He could have said, but I've never faced a giant. See, sometimes we say, well, I've never done that. I can't do that because it's beyond my capabilities. Some of you know that I love the story of Rufus and Clarence. You remember the story of Rufus and Clarence? Let me tell it to you in case you don't remember. Well, Rufus and Clarence were two redneck guys, lived across the river from each other. And every day they would go down to the river yelling at each other. If you were over here, Rufus, I'd whip you. Well, Clarence, if you were over here, I'd whip you. And this went on for ages. And both the wives got up. They got tired of it. This was every day, Rufus and Clarence, Rufus and Clarence. And finally, one day, Rufus's wife said, hey, Rufus, you know they built a bridge over the river? Said, all you got to do is just go down across the bridge and you can go take on Clarence. You've been telling you wanted to do it for years. Why don't you please do it? He said, well, Mama, I'm going to do that. So he went out the door. In about 30 seconds or so, he was kind of flying back in and went sliding under the bed. And she said, Rufus, what's going on? Well, Mama, I went down to that bridge that you talked about, and when I got there, it said Clarence, 10'6". He didn't look that big from over here. So sometimes the giant's bigger than we think. And David could have been said when he saw the giant. When he saw the giant, that giant, and the Bible doesn't call him a giant, he was a big man. Matter of fact, if he walked into a basketball gym, his head would have hit the net. Not the rim, but the net, because he was almost 10 foot tall. And he could have said, I've never fought a giant. I've never had to fight a giant. I killed a bear, I killed a lion, but I've never fought a giant. Some of you might have hit the problem when you went applying for a job. You applied for the job, and they said, well, you don't have experience. Well, how can I get experience if nobody can hire me? And then when you get experience, you go apply for the job, you're overqualified. But sometimes we listen to the wrong people. And sometimes we even tell ourselves, and sometimes we say, well, it's something I've never done. One of the big things of churches, well, we've never done it that way before. Then I go to Moses that I started with a while ago. See, Moses had one of the greatest testimonies recorded in the Bible. Listen to what it says in Deuteronomy chapter 34. Now Joshua, son of Nun, was filled with the spirit of wisdom because Moses had laid hands on him. So the Israelites listened to him and did what the Lord had commanded Moses. Since then, no prophet has risen in Israel like Moses, whom the Lord knew face to face, and who did all those miraculous signs and wonders the Lord sent him to do in Egypt, to Pharaoh and to all his officials and to the whole land. For no one has ever shown the mighty power or performed the awesome deeds that Moses did in the sight of Israel. How many thinks that's a pretty awesome testimony? Nobody has ever been another Moses. And yet, when God spoke to Moses out of the burning bush, he said, Moses, I want you to go get your people. and bring them out of Egypt. And Moses said, I can't. I can't. I can't do that. I'm not capable of doing that. I don't speak good. I've tried and failed. They won't accept me. I can't. I've never done that. What if David would have said that? I've never faced a giant. I've never faced a giant. I've done a lion and I've done a bear, but I've never done a giant. See, we can't listen to those people that are telling us differently. But not only do we not listen, we cannot allow the excuse that I haven't done it before. Because think of all those people. Think of all those people that God has allowed to do something magnificent. Moses was a prime example. He said, I can't. I've never done it before. But God says, yes, you can. Don't limit God by what people speak against you. And don't limit God because of your lack of experience. Because the only way you get experience is by doing. You know, I know you hate to admit it, but the only way you learn experience is by failing. Huh? That's the only way. So don't listen to what people are saying and don't allow the excuse that you haven't done it before. Because David could have done that. But he trusted in the Lord. He trusted in the Lord. Let's just read a couple of verses. Verse 45. David said to the Philistine, you come against me with sword and spear and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord Almighty, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. This day the Lord will hand you over to me, and I'll strike you down and cut off your head. Today I'll give the carcasses of the Philistine army to the birds of the air and beasts of the earth, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. Now, how could he say that? He wasn't experienced. He wasn't a soldier. He was just a young boy. How could he do it? Because he had a faith in a God. He said, the same God that delivered me out of the hand of the bear, out of the hand, the claw of the lion, will deliver this giant into my hand. Young people, the same God that helped you make it through calculus will help you fight the giants. You may have never done it. The same God that, some of you are not there yet, same one that helped you get through PE. The same God that do that will help you overcome the challenges that you'll face. Point 3. David says in the King James Version, I like it better. He says, is there not a cause? Is there not a cause? Do not let lack of a cause you to fail. Because the cause of the Lord Jesus Christ is the greatest cause in all the world. God gives us a purpose. And according to Scripture, God gives us different gifts, different abilities to accept the challenge and to fulfill the cause, to fight the cause. And if all you have to do is to figure out if there's a cause is to have looked at news this week. Has there been anything on news this week that irked you? Huh? Is there not a cause? And I know I'm treading on dangerous ground, but there's a cause whenever you can abort a baby that's being born. That's a cause. Friends, that's not freedom of choice, that's murder. That's murder. And there's already some challenges. Now, listen, if you're here and you've had an abortion, please, I do not want to condemn you or do that. I'm just telling you that God gives forgiveness and God gives strength, but God will not bless a nation that endorses murder. And now the next step, it's already been brought up, is can they kill the baby after it's born if they see any defects on it? Now the next one won't affect the children. The next one will be if a person is old and can't take care of themselves, can we get rid of them? God will not bless a nation that does that. But the reality is we don't have to go to government. We can look at the church. The church of the Lord Jesus Christ, I believe we have a cause. And the cause is Jesus. But did you know in the United States there's more churches closing than they are being opened? There's more churches closing than they're being opened. And you say, well, why is that? Well, there's probably a number of reasons. We can blame the culture. We can blame the environment. We can blame the political atmosphere. But could I suggest to you that it could be because we forgot the cause? We forget the cause. The cause of the Lord Jesus Christ. The Great Commission certainly is our challenge. But how is that nation being fulfilled, or that vision being fulfilled? Are we listening to those around us? I believe we are. The church in the United States, we're listening to those around us, and it's causing us to lose sight of the cause. We're listening to the negative publicity, and we're forgetting the cause. Someone mentioned recently that there's some people that would not recognize the church without poinsettias or Easter lilies. Some of you understand that. But there's one statistic that's really alarming, and I just found that out this week. Today, or now in the United States, among regular church attenders, now this is not non-church people. These are the people that attend church regularly. You know what the average number of times per month the regular church attenders attend church? 1.7 times a month. And they're regular church attenders. Could it be that we've forgotten that there's a cause? Well, what's the cause? Well, I'm glad you asked. Glad you asked. I know that going to church doesn't make you a Christian any more than sitting in a chicken house makes you a chicken. We understand that. But the Bible plainly says, forsake not the assembling of yourselves together. As a matter of some is, that we, even more so as we see the day approaching, there is a cause. But could it be that we have forgotten the cause? A number of years ago, they did an exit survey from Disney World. They were asking what was their biggest negative complaint, what was your biggest negative take from exiting Disney World. Now, this was a number of years ago. And there was one statement that came out over and over and over again. The number one thing they disliked was not the long lines. It was not the cost. The number one excuse, the number one complaint was they did not see who? Mickey Mouse. People come from China to see Mickey Mouse. I mean, Dave Gallinet told me he was looking forward to the day that he and Margaret can drive their golf cart to see Mickey Mouse. The day's fast approaching, is getting close. But they come to see, now like I said, this is a number of years ago. And they asked, well, what are we going to do? They said, well, why don't you get a number of Mickey Mouses and turn them loose in the thing? They said, that's not going to work. Because what if two Mickey Mouses show up in Frontierland? You know, that's like two Santa Claus being in the same store. You know, that doesn't work. So what did they do? They decided they had to do something about the number one complaint. They said, we're going to have a parade every day. Remember them when they started the parades? The purpose of those parades is so that everybody that goes to Disney World can see Mickey Mouse. Because Mickey Mouse leads every parade. Could it be that the reason people are not flocking to church is because the number one reason we should come to church is to see Jesus? And we don't see Him. I know I try to make sure that we put Jesus in every sermon. But from what I understand, that doesn't happen. So no wonder people are dropping out of church, because we've forgotten the cause. Now, this is in the United States. Next week, James Davis will be with us, and he's going to give some awesome things. But just in China, 40 to 45,000 converts a day. Our team just got back from Cuba. Revival going on in Cuba. We can't build churches down there. We built a church this week, right, Gator? And they're building churches all over the place, but they can't build them fast enough because God is giving increase. Well, what about here? Could it be because we've forgotten the cause? We've forgotten that Jesus is the reason. Not just for the season, but He's the reason for being. Amen. He's the reason for us being here. Could we do that? Because we need to understand, as we live for Jesus, it allows us to fulfill our God-given vision. So don't listen to those around you. Don't be affected by the fact that you've never done it before. And don't forget the cause of Christ. And God will allow us to do that. I really didn't know how to close this message. But as God always does, He allows me to hear something or see something. And so I was listening to the radio. And I said, that's it. It's a song, and I'm not going to sing it, so you can relax. But the words from a group called Casting Crowns, and I know many of you will know this song. But I want you to listen to the words, because it's really about the cause. Jesus, friend of sinners. Jesus, friend of sinners, we have strayed so far away. We cut down people in your name, but the sword was never ours to swing. Jesus, friend of sinners, the truth becomes so hard to see. The world is on their way to you, but they're tripping over me. Always looking around, but never looking up. I'm so double-minded, a plank-eyed saint with dirty hands and a heart divided. Oh, Jesus, friend of sinners, open our eyes to the world at the end of our pointing fingers. Let our hearts be led by mercy. Help us reach with open hearts and open doors. Oh, Jesus, friend of sinners, break our heart for what breaks yours. Jesus, friend of sinners, the ones who's writing in the sand, make the righteous turn away and their stones fall from their hands. Help us to remember we are the least of thieves. Let the memory of your mercy bring your people to their knees. No one knows what we're for, only against, when we judge the wounded. What if we put down our signs, crossed over the lines, and loved like you did? Oh, Jesus, friend of sinners, open our eyes to the world at the end of our pointing fingers. Let our hearts be led by mercy. Help us reach with open hearts and open doors. Oh, Jesus, friend of sinners, break our heart for what breaks yours. You love every lost cause. You preach for the outcast, for the leper and the lame. They're the reason that you came. Lord, I was the lost cause and I was the outcast. Let me read that again. Lord, I was the lost cause and I was the outcast. But you died for sinners just like me, a grateful leper at your feet. Because you're good. You're good and your love endures forever. Oh, Jesus, friend of sinners, open our eyes to the world at the end of our pointing fingers. Let our hearts be led by mercy. Help us reach with open doors and open hearts and doors. Oh, Jesus, friend of sinners, break our heart for what breaks yours. And I was the lost cause, and I was the outcast. You died for sinners just like me, a grateful leper at your feet. That's the cause of the church. Christ is the cause of the church. David made the statement. David exemplified it. He said, don't let what people are saying keep you from fulfilling your vision. Don't let your lack of experience keep you from launching out to do what God asked you to do. And don't forget, there is a cause. And that cause is the Lord Jesus Christ. The Lord Jesus Christ. I'm going to ask the worship team to come, and we're going to sing that song that they sang earlier. I'm going to ask our brethren to come distribute the elements of communion. Please hold them until everyone is served. We're going to pray before we partake. But let's sing that song that we sang earlier. And make a commitment that we will not stop short of the journey because of what somebody's saying or from our lack of experience, and certainly because of a lack of a cause, because Jesus is the cause.